It's always fascinating when an interview with someone I think I know turns out to be the most surprising of all. More often than not, we don't know the half of it. I've known Shylah for a while. We've had a number of conversations, never going in too deep. After Lynn's episode in Season 1, which if you haven't heard, you definitely should, she reached out to me and said it made me think of my mom and my childhood. Here's the beautiful fact. We never know who will be impacted by our story or who needs to hear it. Every single story is unique, yet we can somehow see ourselves in someone else's memory, a phrase, an event. That's why telling our story is so important. It can give others courage to share their own. I stood in her kitchen with my backpack full of gear while she made me a cup of tea. Her kids called me Mega and wanted to know what could be so important as to keep me from watching Disney movies with them instead. We settled onto her cozy couch and dove right in. I want to give you a heads up, Shylah's story is not a light one. We discuss in some detail abuse, manipulation, and sexual behavior. Furthermore, Shylah's story is not finished. Without giving too many spoilers, she will end our chat by outlining some more difficult, prickly subjects: forgiveness, boundaries, and counseling. You're going to want to lean in.
The biggest preface that I could give is that I didn't know my life was bad as a kid.
Yeah.
I didn't know that the way that my dad behaved and treated my mom, I wasn't exposed to a lot of other kids and parents, so I didn't understand that all dads
nothing to compare it to.
Didn't make their kids do a lot of physical labor, and that didn't shout at their moms and in violent ways.
Right.
And I think it's kind of classic narcissistic abuser too, to have the person that they are treating that way, they slowly isolate them more and more and more from their friends and family. I mean, I knew I was scared of my dad growing up. I just thought that all parents had the level of expectation that he did, or spanked as much as he did, or invoked physical labor punishments for weird things. I remember one time something fell on our electric fence and we couldn't find it, and he made my brothers and I run miles in the rain to try to find it, screaming at. It was just weird stuff like that. Where at the time I knew it was crappy, but I didn't understand this is actually abuse. This is not okay. I just thought my mom was this really quiet, boring, calm person, and then my dad was this super dynamic, fun guy, and he would put my mom down a lot in front of us, and I didn't recognize it as that at the time. I just thought she is not as fun, she doesn't want to do these things. She always made me feel very safe and loved.
Yeah.
And her and my dad would often fight behind closed doors. Okay. And I think she thought she was, I don't think that. I know in talking to her now that she was protecting us from that, or that we didn't see all the stuff that was happening to her. It happened, I guess, my mom has told me, when they were first married, and she tried to leave him once. And my dad is literally the most charismatic, charming person you'll ever meet. Talked my mom into coming back. And so the story definitely gets crazier. And I might sound kind of cold, but it's just because I have gone through a lot of counseling, and God is so good. So then when I was a baby, she was pregnant with my brother Jared, was the second time a big physical abuse happened. Her spleen was ruptured, so she had to be in the hospital. And it was really traumatic for her because they made her stop nursing me. And there was this whole thing. My dad wouldn't let her see me at the time. So there was just a lot of control. And of course, she didn't tell anyone then that he had done it. And so
there was no concern at the hospitals either of something's off here.
And I haven't asked her specifically if any nurse was please tell us, but I know that at the time, if it was, she lied. Okay. So and there's probably some of the facts of this story that she could correct for me, but this is my knowledge of the situation. So we moved several times when I was younger. We never had a lot of money, but I don't remember knowing that as a kid either. So we lived in a trailer park in St. Louis, and then we moved to our farm when I was 6.
Okay.
And I just thought I had this dream life because I had a horse.
Yeah.
It was like, imagine being a 6-year-old girl.
Right.
I'm in heaven. And so fast forward about 4 years, and then my grandparents just show up at our house in the middle of the day. And my grandparents live in Florida. So this is not like
an everyday happenstance.
No, like
yeah,
I would see them like once a year at family reunion. And my mom was speaking on the phone to my grandmother in Spanish. My mom and my grandmother were both pretty fluent in Spanish. And now I know it was because she didn't want my brothers and I to hear what she was saying and what the plan was. He was at work.
Okay.
So she was doing all this stuff. So we got in the car and we drove to Cape Girardeau, which was about 3 hours away, which I'm just thinking we're having this fun adventure with my grandparents. And they told us they wanted to take us to Cracker Barrel, which, I mean, I'm a kid. We like never go out to eat. So I'm like, bring it on. And so we ate, and then my mom said, I need to talk to you guys. Like, we are not going home. You're not going to see your dad again. And I mean, I was devastated because I didn't know my dad was a bad guy. I didn't see him that way. And I was so upset. Like, I mean, you can imagine it would be like your whole world being turned upside down. So we moved to Florida with my grandparents, and I started public school there in the end of my 5th grade. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we lived in Florida for almost a year with my grandparents, and the whole time my dad communicated with me and my brothers and my mom, and agreed to do counseling with my mom in Florida, so he came some. My mom's parents never liked my dad, like from the beginning. They met and got married within like a very short time frame. Like we're talking, I want to say months at the most. And so they were never convinced that my dad was on the up and up. And we went back, which of course at the time I was thrilled about. Like my mom and dad are back together.
At this point, was your mom communicating with you guys like, hey, this is what was actually going on? Or was it still pretty mysterious?
She was very close-lipped about it.
Okay.
Like I knew it wasn't good, but I, even looking back, I don't think I understood why. Yeah. But so we moved back into the trailer and the older house. I'm putting about 2 years on this. I think total it's probably closer to like 1.5 years. Okay. I had started 6th grade in Viburnum, so public school there, and my mom, when we moved back, got a job. She said we had been doing public school and she had worked, and I think she really enjoyed that, and she was ready to like change things up, and I think she thought all of that would be more of a fresh start,
right. It's different than it was before.
Yeah.
And was he didn't know that you all were leaving, of course, so was there like an outrage that you... Every time I spoke to him and what I saw was just absolute, it sounded like he felt terrible. Mm-hmm. He was apologetic. He cried all the time, and now knowing more about what I know, I think he believed all of it. I think he believed he had messed up, and I think he believed that he was going to change. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't denying any of it then. He was...
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
But he also, I think, probably didn't see it for the big deal that it was. And he and my mom went to counseling when we moved back. And I remember that being a big deal because we had to drive pretty far away while they did their sessions.
I'm shocked that after a year and a half, they were seeing counselors and it was like, oh, we're going back and
that is because my dad is an absolute master manipulator. He can make anyone believe anything he wants to believe. And you'll like, there are more pieces of the story that you'll be like, why was nobody like
saying something,
doing
something.
So we go back, my parents are in counseling, we're back and we started going to a different church, all of which were stipulations my mom had. Everything came to a head one night, so they were over in the older house, which was like the endless remodeling project because they didn't have the money. And working, and my brothers and I heard, so I would have been 12 at the time, heard my mom scream really like bloody murder scream, like it scared the crap out of me. And we freaked out, my brothers and I, and ran outside, and I remember seeing my dad was pinning her against the house, and she was yelling like, please let me go, and now I'm going to cry because it was terrifying. As a little kid, I had no idea what was going on. So yeah, this is the first time I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is a really bad situation. And so my mom got away from my dad and ran off. And the next thing I know, my dad is making me look in the woods and call for my mom with him. He told me that she had probably killed herself and that we needed to find her. And so I'm like a 12-year-old girl looking for my probably dead mom. I'm screaming and crying for her, and she doesn't answer because she's terrified of what he's going to do if he finds her. And she didn't leave at that point. The next day, she like moved over into the older house, and I think she was like trying to get a plan together. He would have me go over and like tell my mom, like feed me words to say to her. Like he, from the very beginning, started, it sounds really dramatic, but he brainwashed my brothers and I. He would keep us up till all hours of the night. And he was just as abusive with my brothers, but I would say that I carried the brunt of that because I was the oldest, and he used me. Like he used me to carry out all of his. Yeah. And I felt like the burden was all on me. Like I need to take care of my dad. I need to take care of my brothers. And so my mom left a few days later. He would have me go over and like tell her all these horrible things, and she would just not respond. We would be over, I remember being over there for what felt like ages, and she was just like no response whatsoever. And so I just thought, she doesn't like me, she doesn't love me, she doesn't care to respond. And I didn't know. I'm just like coming at it from a kid's perspective. And so she left a few days later and went to a women's shelter, which was about an hour away, and was there for a good amount of time. And her plan was to come back and get my brothers and I. She got a lawyer, and they assigned a guardian ad litem to my brothers and I, which I don't know if you know what that is, but it's basically a court-appointed person to act on the behalf of the kids. And I was 12 at the time. My dad, I remember him keeping us up and coaching us about what this person was going to ask us and what we needed to say to them. And it does sound really dramatic, but it is totally true that he totally brainwashed us. It does not sound he told what was going on. All of us that my mom was crazy, that she was schizophrenic, that she didn't love us, that she didn't want to be our mom anymore. Yeah. Nothing was going on. I was just trying to control her. She's the one that came after me violently. I mean, just totally. Wow. And I really think he believed all of that at the time. Really? Like, I don't know. I think there was a lot that he was doing that he had to know was wrong. But I think he's such a narcissist. I think he's such a narcissist and was so unhealthy at the time that he really believed that what my mom was doing was worse. Like she had left. She was going to, and divorce was thrown around like it was the absolute worst thing a person could ever. The Lord hates divorce. I mean, he must have said that to me 1,000 times. He would quote scripture. I mean, he used the Bible to manipulate. I mean, totally. Yeah. So we go see this guardian ad litem, my brothers and I, and
at this point you believe your dad?
I believe my dad hook, line, and sinker. Okay. I think my mom is crazy. Okay. I think she's left us. I think that she doesn't have any business. And I tell the guardian ad litem all of this. And they just believe me. I'm a 12, 13-year-old kid. They don't do any investigating. They didn't send anyone to our house. They didn't interview anyone else in our life that I know of. And they just give my dad custody of us kids. And then, fast forward like 5 years later when everything hits the fan and it's clear that my dad should never have been given that.
Yeah.
I have all this guilt.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm the one that made that decision for me and my brothers. I was old enough to get to do that. Like at the time I was like, this is a privilege I have.
Yep.
I get to decide, and I am going to decide not to be with my mom. Like she doesn't have it together.
I am protecting us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
My grandmother came to live with us, my dad's mom. And she was only there for about a year before she left because my dad really started to fall off the deep end. He started to drink. My dad had custody of us. My mom had us like every other weekend. But at this point, I'm in 7th grade. I have stuff going on, and I wanted my dad's approval.
Oh,
So I hardly ever went with my mom. My brothers went a lot with her every other weekend. Early high school, I was there one time, and I remember like seeing flowers and being like, where did these come from? And so I like got on her computer and read her emails and found that she had been like long distance dating this guy who is now my stepdad. And he lived in Virginia, and my mom's sister did too. So she made the decision to move there and date him and get married, which further confirmed to me that she didn't want to be our mom,
Right.
that she didn't want to be there. That's not the truth, but it hurt even more. It was more of a rejection. And I went to see her a few times, but in reality, it was mostly to like get her to buy me clothes. Like the visits I had with her, like it wasn't a true relationship.
Right.
And I was so blocked off to it because I just wanted to make my dad so proud. Like, we hate her together. She's the worst.
Right.
Like, we hate her.
Yeah.
My dad started dating a lot when I was in high school. He dated a lot of women that were very close to my age, which was really disturbing. I became like his best friend. Like, he would come home at 2 a.m. and tell me about the women that he had been with and what they had done. Like, and I remember at one point, like, finally being like, this is not okay. Like, you're putting too much on me and telling me too much. And he got so angry with me. Like, it was terrible. And so then I just learned, like, just to listen and please him and do. My brothers, like, I saw him get aggressive with them several times, which then would send me over the edge.
Yeah.
And those were the couple times that I challenged him.
Okay.
I tried to, like, run away to my friend's house one time, and then, of course, it was, like, the begging and the pleading and the crying. And I just never told anyone, like, how terrible he was. Like, he started at least smoking pot, and my brother was the one that had to tell me, my younger brother, because I was just, like, so naive. Like, he would come home and be in a rage and then, like, go to the basement and then be better. And my brother was like, Shylah. And back to that, like, he's, like, going around with all these women, like, sleeping with all these women, drinking. But, like, the most important thing to him was that I be, like, the purest. Like, he bought me a purity ring. Like, he quoted scripture to me all the time. Like, he did not want me to date. Like, he was very... And I remember thinking that he was also on the up and up. And I heard him and one of his girlfriends one night only doing what, I knew that they were. And I just, like... It was this huge identity crisis because I thought my dad... It was like the first time the
Even
rug was pulled out.
That he was telling you and like...
This was before that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess like backtrack. So that was probably like my 8th or 9th grade year.
Oh my gosh.
And then it was just like... After that, it was kind of like, well, but it's still better than being with my mom. Like, and that was where like my life was. My friends were there. I didn't want to leave, and my dad came to every sporting event I ever had. Like, he looked on paper like a great dad. But those were the only times that I saw him. Like, he would come home from work, and I had to have, like, his outfit ready for him going out, and, like, throw a 20 on the counter, and my brothers and I would have to, like, survive on that all weekend because we wouldn't see him again until Sunday night. I knew it wasn't cool, but I wasn't like, this is terribly abusive. This is like super messed up. I graduated high school Wyatt's dad and I were dating. When I got pregnant with Wyatt, it was like, oh my gosh, like my whole world was turned upside down. This was not my plan. Like, I'm this girl. I have this purity ring.
Yeah.
How
old were you at that time?
I was 19. I found out on my 19th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm obviously super thankful that I have my son Wyatt and that things really came to a head after that. So my dad got arrested for dealing marijuana, and then they found meth, like things to make meth in the home. And it had gotten really bad after I left, and my brothers were there, and somebody from our hometown like called my mom. Like, I would fantasize all the time about my dad just like not coming home and me getting to raise my brothers and take care of them, and us just like have a chill house and be fine.
Yeah.
Which is like so messed up, but I thought like it'd be great if I could just like raise my brothers and my mom wouldn't find out and my dad would never come home and mess this situation up. I was just so fooled into thinking he was like this great dad, but that it was like super chaotic and terrible when he would be at home. But then sometimes it would be amazing, and you never knew which dad you were going to get. Like, there would be days that I would be the most beautiful, intelligent person, and then there would be days where my thighs were too fat and I couldn't ever measure up, and all I cared about was stuff that was stupid. And so someone from the town called my mom and said, like, Lindsay's been arrested. It's gotten this bad. And so my mom like immediately came with my stepdad, and they got a lawyer and filed for custody. And of course, I'm already an adult, so I'm out of the picture, and I'm pregnant. And that's when my mom and I really started to rebuild our relationship. I mean, it was just so good to get all that stuff off my chest, like what had been going on.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm still seeing him on and off through all
Your
this.
dad?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then right before I had Cora, my brother Gabe had come to live with us after college, and things like really came to a head. Like, there was some drama, and like my dad just finally behaved in a way in front of Greg that Greg was like, we're done for a while.
Greg
like
is
my husband.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, so you married Greg at this point?
Yes, yeah. So we had been married for a little over 5 years at that
Okay.
point. And then I didn't speak to my dad again until just about a year ago. So Cora was 6 when we reconciled, and I just needed that much time to like forgive him and really deal with all that stuff and not establish a relationship with him with any expectations. And I do feel like my dad has gone through a lot of healing, but I mean, it's a very broken relationship. Like, I don't think I'll ever be able to trust him again, but I'm really happy to just have like what we can have, and I'm like at complete peace. Like, if he died tomorrow, I would not have any regrets. He's still my dad, and I love him so much, truly. And now I think the difference is that I just love my dad where he's at, just being confident that if something were to go sideways, I would just say, okay, like, I'm out again, and that be okay too.
Yeah.
Like,
forgiveness for you doesn't look like reckless abandon.
Exactly.
Just full relationship with my dad again. Because I think someone listening that maybe has gone through anything similar could be just so hopeful for that place of forgiveness and everything. But that's not without boundaries. And
absolutely.
all
And
of these things.
that was the thing for a long time that I didn't understand I could employ. Those weren't tools in my arsenal, that I could love him and have a relationship with him, but like maybe just meet for coffee, or, things like that. And it not be all or nothing. Yeah. And, I think that would be one of the biggest pieces of advice. Like, and I think he used that to his benefit too. Like, well, the Bible says we should forgive, and forgiveness is reconciliation. And that's just not the truth. Yeah. Forgiveness does not equal relationship. It does not equal reconciliation. I mean, I think that that's ultimately what the Lord wants, but you can't reconcile with someone who isn't willing to follow like boundaries and respect guidelines that you set up, and sometimes you do have to break a relationship. Right. I really believe that it's really possible to break the cycle. And I don't think we often see that. But it's not me. It's, God in me. Like, he's brought me the most amazing friends and family and church homes over the years, which I'm so thankful for. And slowly, all those things. But I see a counselor here. Sometimes it'll be something that I'll talk to Greg about, and I'll just say, I just really feel like I need an impartial party to like hash this through with.
Right.
And I see that now as like this amazing tool in my tool belt.
Yeah.
And not a weakness.
Oh, no.
Not like, I love it. I think that everyone should go through counseling. Someone who isn't just going to listen, but start to give you those tools to healing, because I had to take responsibility for all my parts in this story too. The unhealthy stuff that I brought into my marriage, and the unhealthy stuff that I bring into being a mother, and that the way I break the cycle is to take responsibility for my part of it, and to get healthy and to put, that into action. Rather than staying the victim. I think if you're seeing a counselor who will let you stay a victim, then you have the wrong counselor. Because that's not a place that you can start to be healthy from.
I was stunned at how little time has passed for Shylah to be able to say that she's forgiven her dad. She offered so much hope into any broken relationship or situation. Even when there is major conflict in our lives and families, the story is not over. There is still time to shift the plot. One way we begin that shift is by sharing. This wasn't the first time Shylah has told her story. She said that she finds more healing every time she opens up. This week, I want to encourage you to consider a part of your story you don't often share. I understand the desire to keep certain things private, but think, for a moment, how someone could benefit from hearing your story, or how you could benefit from telling it. The whole, ugly, raw truth. Maybe telling a friend is the first step for you. Maybe it's seeking a counselor, like Shylah suggested. Or if you'd like, you can go to our website and open the page Share Your Story. I've gotten emails with some of the craziest stories you can imagine, but some prefer to keep it quiet, just spilling in an email to a stranger. I'm delighted to honor that and glad to provide a safe space. I don't pretend to have all the answers, but I can listen. You can tell me to keep it private, or share it on the blog, or interview on the podcast. I'm so glad that Shylah did just that. We need each other. We need our stories. Yours matters too. Music for the show is by Nathan Hall and artwork by Ashley Crutcher and Jenny Brewster. Thanks for listening to You Never Asked.